This panel discussion is about transitioning from the military and the different ways that we transition into this culinary industry, service industry. And so, like for myself, I did 18 years in the Marine Corps and decided to get out and go to culinary school. I started culinary school 2 weeks after I retired, and then go into, straight into restaurants. And not something that I did in the military, but the military training that we go through, no matter what branch you go through, working in the service industry is kind of like the same hierarchy, and just that same workspace that you get in dealing with troops and dealing with platoons that you deal with in the kitchen, because at some point in your time you're going to be at the bottom and you're just trying to work your way to the top with teamwork and service like that. So with that transition, I'm going to go to Chef Ian here. So how was your transition to the career that you had into the career you're into now?
So interestingly enough, I was never military. I was never a member of the military, but interestingly enough, my career path, I transitioned students from high school, from college, into the culinary industry. Last year, I got the pleasure of spending a week in Paris Island. They have this program that they do for teachers, where they took us down to Paris Island for a week. So yes, I spent a week in the Marines. They took us down to Paris Island and they treated us like they would any recruit. And I came back with a passion for what the Marines do. And since then, every time I find a student that I think could benefit from the service in the Marines, I've introduced them to the recruiter.
That's awesome.
I was in the military 8.5 years. I was in the Army National Guard with one deployment to Afghanistan. And the transition for me was, of course, a little easier because of National Guard. You do your 2 weeks a year and your weekend a month. So, for me, it was an easy transition because I was already shucking oysters in between times, and honestly, despite, I like training, but, I think for me, that was one of the reasons why I chose to get out. One was I got tired of always getting ready to get deployed, but then not get on the final list. And, that's a whole mental thing of getting ready and not getting ready. And also around that time when I had my son, and I was like, it's time for a change. So that was another transition.
So how did you get the name Oyster Ninja?
Oyster Ninja came around because another part of this transition of getting out of the military, I had to get a real job. So I started this doing security, armed security, and one of my lieutenants was a podcaster, and I didn't even know what a podcast really was. But I was telling him about all these cool stories of me shucking oysters for the president, shucking oysters in parades and stuff. He's like, man, you got a cool story. You should tell it. So we came up with this name Oyster Ninja, and it's kind of stuck over the years, and people just call me Oyster Ninja now. So the Oyster Ninja podcast is where I interview oyster shuckers, oyster farmers, people in aquaculture, and help share their stories.
That's awesome.
Nice. All right. So myself as well was never in the military, but have definitely transitioned a lot in the culinary field, and then now most recently into media. And that transition started 7 years ago and actually was birthed through the passing of my mother. I have got my first televised competition, and I was very nervous about it, and still depressed from losing my mother. It was a very heavy loss for me. And I remember when I finally actually went through and did it, not only, it was with the Cake Boss, and not only did he rave about, the products and things that I produced and how I worked on the show, but it showed me that I wasn't really believing in myself as much, and my craft, and then it also showed me how much I actually love TV, and I wanted to create a space for Black men in the baking and pastry field in the higher media realm. So we're talking about judging, hosting shows, being asked to do food festivals and things like that. There was nobody that I can actually look up to that was a positive role model, and I said, I'm going to be that role model. So I started to blaze that trail for people that look like me and identified in my community. And the transition has been difficult, but it's been beautiful. Difficult because in the beginning you realize, I want this right now. You want it kind of instantly, but then beautiful because then I started realizing that it's actually the journey that really makes up what I'm going for. It's not me getting to the end of the destination, because I'm still not yet there. 5 shows in, judged on Food Network, docuseries on Cooking Channel, Kelly Clarkson, Food Network. Done a lot. I've done a lot more than people can speak in my industry that look like me and doing baking and pastry. But the journey has been beautiful, and that's the one thing that I can really say is that the person who I'm becoming in the process.
Keep doing you, brother.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So I'm gonna come right back to you because the second part of this is when you transition, do you think you are 100% prepared when you transition to your new career?
No, never was. But I kind of, a little bit, shout out to my 7th grade teacher who's not here, but my 7th grade teacher, Mr. Milligan, because he gave us, he had me do speaking. He has to do speaking during English, so we had to speak in front of each other like every week, and that built up the confidence as a young black boy growing up in New York, who was still navigating what it means to be a young black boy and to find a safe space when everything else around you look like it's against you. And the world keep telling you that. But I tell you one thing, it's been the cheerleaders along the way that's helped me. That's kind of guided me through. Yeah.
Question is, was I ready?
Yes.
I was not ready. I wasn't ready for, I think, the larger picture responsibility that I was taking on. And part of, like you were saying, just being that person, in the room that stands out from everybody else, And I wasn't ready for that. But the way I was raised, and of course with, some military upbringing also, but, I wasn't ready, but it was inside of me, and I couldn't run from it. And I couldn't run from it because I stood up, I took the step forward in the first place, So I wanted that responsibility, and, I always talk about it just, carrying myself higher than everybody else. It's not everybody else standards, they're not, I don't think people are thinking of me, but, I am representing more than just myself, and that's the same thing with the military. You're not just one soldier, you're representing your whole squad, your team.
Right.
I guess. But no, just that responsibility has been like crazy.
All right, so transition. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, how can I talk about transition? But my transition was different. So I transitioned from the professional culinary industry. My last official chef in a kitchen, well, I own my own catering company, but in a restaurant, I was the executive pastry chef at a restaurant in the St. Regis Hotel right around the corner. So my transition was from high-end cuisines into education. And it's funny, I always believe, well, this is the motto that I live by. I think God has blessed me to be a blessing to others. So when the opportunity came, interesting enough, to the CCAP program, which I'm representing right here to teach, at first I was skeptical. I spent a summer teaching at a high school in D.C., in Southeast D.C. And I walked out of that high school at the end of summer. I said, I would never, ever, ever teach again, because these kids are just too much. A couple of weeks after, I'm sitting at home, I need a job. I get a call to teach. 15 years later, I love it. The thing is, interesting. That's one of my former students. I taught her when she was 16. But interestingly enough, once I started teaching, and I realized the lives that I was blessing, I was changing. I've had students who walked in. I had one kid who walked into my class, and the only reason why he joined my class is because his girlfriend was in the class. 2 years later, no, 2.5 years late, going on 3 years later, he was in Ireland competing in Nando's international grilling competition, which he won. So there's another gentleman who I had the opportunity to mentor, who now out of Southeast DC, the same school, who now Anacostia High School, who now runs 6 wineries in California. CEO and president of 6 wineries in California. So when I say I transitioned into what God had put me here for, more so than what I wanted to do. Because every time there was an opportunity for me to get a job that paid me a lot more money, there was always that one student that needed my help. And I've always chose that one student. You know, people ask me, why don't you move into one of these bigger schools that pay you more money? But if I move out of my community, I live in Maryland, Prince George's County, who else is going to fill my spot? No, who else is going to fill my spot? Right? I don't know. So I'm just going to stay there till God moves me out of that spot.
So you talk about transition. So when I transitioned out of the Marine Corps, I had already had a vision to go to culinary school. I had already had a plan set to go to culinary school. So when I started culinary school, I was like, hell yeah, I'm ready. Until I got into culinary school. And I thought I knew how to cook. I thought I knew the basics of cooking. I had my Aunt Margaret's macaroni and cheese recipe, sweet potato pie, potato salad, and that's not the way it goes. And you actually have to use measurements and not just putting stuff in there. Right, and everything is real. And so when I talk about, and I just saw my old Major Baker's here. So he was my last CEO right before I went to culinary school, and I was fortunate enough to have him as one of my leaders because he pushed me just as hard as I pushed him. But he was awesome. And when I got ready to retire, he was one of the ones that kind of just, solidified that I was ready to go into the next step because getting out of the military, some of us know, some of us are there, some of us are on our way there, some of us have been there. You absolutely have no idea what's going to happen next. And so all you can do is, fall on faith, trust in what you believe in, also trust your training and what you go through. And so that's where I was in my transition. And 6 months into me going into a restaurant, I set a plan that says, you know what, I want to be an executive chef by 10 years, running a restaurant by 15. And after 6 months working in a new restaurant, the executive chef got fired and handed me the keys and said, you're the boss. So it is what it is, and there's no bitching about it. You just got to go to work, and that's all it is. And so I asked to the panel, like, what do you wish you had? What did you wish you knew before going into the career you chose?
Can I say something about that, sir?
Yes, sir.
If I would have had more black mentors, because I worked for the James Beards, I've worked for the Michelin star chefs, and I had to grind it out. I never had the role models for a panel like this, and that's real.
I mean, it's different for black women too. Way different.
What's your name?
I'm Brad.
Brad?
Yes, sir.
You're in the Marine Corps, Brad.
I'm out now, but yes.
Yeah, and so all that grinding you did.
I went in the Marine Corps as Infantry Marine 0331, machine gunner. I got out, cooking was my passion. So I started doing that. So none of the shit I did translated to real world life.
The work part transition.
The work
And your grind transition.
The ethic transition. The putting rounds down range doesn't transition. But
Blowing up shit doesn't transition.
it does not, sir. And I'm dead ass about that. It does not. But I didn't have mentors. I didn't have a panel like this in front of me.
I got it. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Like that's top tier for me. Having a mentor. So now what I do is I actually go to high schools that have culinary programs or entrepreneurship programs, and I speak. I've spoke to several of the students. I'm an advisory board member for CCAP. Okay, shout out to CCAP, which I've been for the last 3 years, and I not only do DC, but I do New York, I do Chicago, I do LA, and I touch a lot of students. And that's the one thing that I want to do. I want to tell my story so I can be a mentor to those young youth that I didn't have. No one came into my classroom in New York City that looked like me, that was speaking the things that I wanted to do. So I definitely would say a mentor is 100% number one. And I would say second, let's be honest, as a black man and a black gay man, I'm an openly black gay man, I didn't have confidence. I wish I had confidence in myself. I wish the world allowed me to exist fully, so that therefore when I walked into a room in that kitchen, I can be my full self in that kitchen, so that therefore when I tell my story on that plate, it's you fully getting me. Because that's at the end of the day, that's what we have a lot of. We are all chefs. We're here cooking the world a better place. You know what I mean? We got in this to please and to cook for people. And that's all I wanted to do.
We're going to show up and show out.
Exactly. So I would say that would be one of the things that I wish. Mentoring, and then more self-confidence and self-love in myself, then my journey wouldn't have been just as rough as it would have been because of the things I self-inflicted on myself.
All right, so what do I wish? See, I grew up in the Caribbean. I grew up in the most beautiful island,
A and B.
the most beautiful island in the Caribbean, Antigua. All right. And what I wish I had was the opportunities. A lot of the times when we sit on this side, we don't see what we don't have. Or maybe we see what we don't have, but we don't see what we do have. So, and not to knock anybody as anything. For me, the wish that I had some of the opportunities that's offered here in the United States to these students. Perfect example, my niece who's back in Antigua now studying culinary, she doesn't even have the textbooks. They don't have all the equipments that we have here. The saddest part about my job is that I have so much to offer to my students, and a lot of the times they don't really grasp it and take advantage of what they have. The ones that do, they'll get $128,000 through CCAP to the Culinary Institute of America and all of these different programs. But there are so many other students that have this opportunity in front of them. I can only speak for my program. I'm not speaking for anybody else's. Okay, Prince George's County built a $101.5 million culinary facility at Oxon Hill High School. And I really, really, truly wish that the students that are there right now would really fully take advantage of what they have, because they have a lot to make up.
So how much of who you are as a person, how do you think that affects and or hurts your career?
For me, it helps. It has helped. Why? Because I have that personality. I also competed on the Food Network. I did the Holiday Baking Championship Season 4, where I made it to the semifinals. And the thing that got me on the show was my personality. And I think that's what has helped me so far throughout my career. I know how to adapt to whatever situation I put myself in. And I also make sure that whenever I step out into an opportunity, I'm prepared for that opportunity. All right? So if it's dropped in front of me, I'm able to respond to it. All right? If I can't respond to it, then I don't take it. So I think for me, just my personality and who I am, and not to brag about anything, nothing like that. It's just, I was raised with a father who never had a college degree. Okay? He was a sharecropper this was back in the days when they raised sugarcane in the Caribbean. Moved from that to the CEO of the largest insurance company in the island, to the president of the Caribbean Insurance Association, to an honorary doctorate degree. So that says to me that if I want it, I can go get it. Because my dad did. And that's what I try to instill in my students. Okay? Yes, we got all these barriers. There's always a barrier. Okay? My dad always said, if your back's against the wall, bow out and come back tomorrow.
I think for me, it's also the personality. Well, I feel like, every room I go into, I kind of take it upon myself to brighten that room. So, no matter what's going on, it's like a lot of people don't really know what an oyster party is, or they have an idea of what they want, and they don't know how to put it all together. So it's my job to say, just give me the space, and I'll put the rest together. So and everybody's on a party night. Everybody's running around. I got to do this. I got to do that. Did we do that? Did we forget that? Where the kids at? So I'm like, just give me my space. Y'all go ahead and do what y'all got to do, and I'll take care of the oysters. And so I think for me, I've always been where I want to know everything I can learn about oysters. First of all, I want to present nice, clean oysters, and that's. I've also competed with shucking competitions where it's based on speed and quality. But, I want to present clean and perfect tasting oysters that leave you with a memory, because a lot of times people eat oysters and it just takes them back to that first oyster. It could be with their grandparents or uncles or aunts or whatever. It could be around the grill, it could be a family reunion, whatever it is. But that food takes you back. So it's my job to bring all of that out and just, when everybody leaves that event, they're still talking about the oysters. Anybody talking about the oysters tonight? Okay. All right, okay.
So how do you think in the age that we live in now, technology as far as computers, POS systems, automated robots, you go into some fast food, you're ordering off a kiosk. How do you think that's playing a role in what you do? Because I know some of us are doing catering. Some of us are in restaurants. How do you think that plays a role into that's
I don't think it plays a role with me either, but I will say that, AI is just killing it. I won't speak on the robots and stuff, but it's this shucking machine that people try to promote. It's like you put an oyster in there and you pull it down. It's like a little lever. It's like, you ever seen that? I was like, yeah, I've seen it. But that's taking my job away. Why would I promote it? Right. Why would I, I don't even, like people, because being an influencer or a person with influence, everybody's trying to send you products, send you this, whatever. You got to be careful what you promote, So, no, I'm not promoting something that's going to take my job.
I don't blame you. All right, so technology. I won't even go as far as AI or all those technologies. Just talk about the basic technologies. When I was in college, I had to do a test, a practicum. And I sat with the chef, and before you did it, you got to explain to him, okay, what's the steps of the dish you're about to make? And he's from the Caribbean as well. So the first thing I said, well, I got the piece of veal and I washed it. He said, stop. He said, I want you to go back and I want you to do a research. I need 3 papers on washing of meat. Right? And I went back and this is back in the days of the what do you call it, encyclopedias. I did
the library. You went to the library. You went to the library. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people in this room went to the library. If I'm looking at everybody clear, we all went to a library in this room. Don't make it sound like that. That library still exists.
And I was there. And
at the DI day, before the interwebs.
And he gave me a whole week, and I did a whole week of research. And
At the library.
At the library. And I couldn't find nothing. Right? And I went back to him and he said, exactly. Right? But the reason why I bring that up is because nowadays I'll say to my students, here's an assignment. And they can't find it. And I'm like, guys, Joe, You guys are blessed. Hang on. You guys are blessed with a thing called the Google machine.
Yo, that phone.
When you pick up the Google machine and do the research, so the ease of information right now is phenomenal.
So, all right, I do want to tap on technology, then we can move. So, one, technology for when you're in the restaurant, I think is amazing, has improved. It's beautiful because there's so much now software. You can put a recipe in, it can convert the recipe to any metrics that you want. It can scale the recipe up or down. It can cost the recipe out. So that, yes, we were doing that by hand. You know what I mean? A lot of people mathing ain't mathing. So I will say that is great for that. And then there's a bunch of other new things. You know, food halls have become an amazing thing. So, you know, the technology that's able to, you know, one single order from 5 different or 20 different restaurants, and you get it all at just one table, that's working well. What technology isn't is one's taking jobs away from people, and in the restaurant it's hospitality, and hospitality is a person-to-person thing. So it's the one thing when you have the computer systems running around, those are great and efficient, but it's missing that personal touch of that smile, of that how was your day. How your day goes a long way. How was your day today? When you look someone in the eye, even if you mean it or not, they can receive it, and it can make their day, it can flip their day upside down. So that's one of the things that you can do in the restaurant. We talked about lasting impressions of dishes and things like that. It also goes with the customer service. So that person made me feel welcome in a restaurant, and that dish wrapped my stomach and my heart up. I'm so filled. I can go home and go to sleep now. I'll talk about that.
That's awesome. And then when we talk about technology, and a lot of you don't know, you go to Home Depot and you see all that stuff in there. Well, Chef Joe is at the Home Depot Design Center in Rockville, Maryland, where you can actually test out all of your equipment before you buy it. And so getting a heads up on that technology piece of what we're talking about, and not just going and buying a piece of box or something off of the shelf, taking it home, going to YouTube, looking up the instructions on how to build it and how to use it. You go see Chef Joe right at the Home Depot Design Center, and he'll show you all of that. So transitioning to that, how do you think age, at your age now, some of us are older than a lot of people who work with in the kitchen. So how do you think your mentorship, whether it be verbal or whether it be by action, is playing out?
I feel like everybody has an equal opportunity, and this goes back to technology now. If you want to learn something, you can learn it. A lot of people are tuning into a lot of older people now because of the experience, maturity, and just now it feels like we're just kind of gliding through life, you know? But older, mature people with experience have gone through things that we want to learn from. I want to be a better dad. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better oyster shucker, you know? So who do I look to? So I think, you know, just because you're older, you shouldn't feel bad or feel like you're being left behind. This is a perfect opportunity to share your voice and your opinion and your viewpoint.
And I was denied that.
I think I'm the oldest on the panel. Yeah, I know. I look 35. I'm 56. But I think being an older instructor, one of the things I struggle with. I tried a lot of my students, or I find the younger generation, they have the microwave mentality.
Yes, yes.
That means, you know, from the time I walk out of high school, I'm a chef. Or from the time I walk out of culinary school, I'm a chef. I want this right now. I had a situation where I placed one of my students at the National Harbor, and they had him in the steakhouse, and he wanted to, right out of high school, he wanted to be the grill cook. He wanted to be the saute cook. And he left the job because of that. Because they weren't pushing him fast enough. They weren't giving him this opportunity fast enough. So one of the struggles for me, not even a struggle, it's one of the things I keep trying to infuse in my students. This is a process, right? Chef, why can't I wear a black jacket in the kitchen? Chef, why can't I wear the tall hat? Why I gotta wear a fluffy hat? And I think more and more this industry, we're moving away from the structure of the industry, because everybody's cooking something now on TikTok.
And it's one of those things where, hey, chef, hey, you have a James Beard Award. Why are you not calling me chef. You know what? I have these accolades. I don't agree with them, but I accept them.
Certain things in this industry no longer are being earned. People are taking it. You know, I have one of my colleagues who have called all his high school students chefs. I'm like, nah, buddy. There's only one chef in this kitchen. The rest of you got exactly.
So, as we wrap this panel up, I just want to personally thank all three of you brothers.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
For making this event special. And in closing, if you could just give a young you one word of advice, what would it be?
All right, I'll start. Have grace with yourself along the journey.
A lot of words.
One word, have grace. Grace.
Roger that, goddamn.
And know your value.
Patience.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.